Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vin Cipolla.
Good morning, everyone. I got a little choked up seeing Tony Goldman on that screen. For those of you who knew Tony, he was really one of our giant urbanists, and there's a hole in New York without Tony Goldman in it, so that was very sweet that we had him in that piece. Welcome to day 2 of the 6th annual MAS Summit for New York, and day 1 was truly incredible. We hosted a battery of sessions exploring every angle of getting the job done on maybe the biggest job ahead of us, building a new Penn Station, new gateway tunnels, and a new, more diverse, more livable, and more resilient future of West Midtown. We explored what should come next in MAS's ongoing City by Design campaign to build a more intentional skyline for New York with Justin Davidson of New York Magazine, Chris Cooper of SOM, Layla Log-Gisico of CB5, Jano Lieber of World Trade Center Properties, and Angela Pinsky of Abney. The great Dan Doctoroff gave us a fantastic preview of his new venture, Sidewalk Labs. We had an incredible presentation from one of the most talented, articulate architects in the world, Santiago Calatrava, and we had a world-class discussion on the next 50 years of preservation with presentations on a range of new and creative adaptive reuse and restoration projects from Pier 57 to the New York State Pavilion to the TWA Flight Center. And we capped it all off with even more provocation and discussion through the Jane Jacobs Forum, where we took Jane's catchphrase of bringing eyes to the street and took it one step further, exploring how all 5 senses interact with the city. And today will be no less robust and exciting. We want to keep that momentum going, and we want to thank all of you for spending Friday with us. And for those of you watching at home and in your offices, welcome to day 2 of the summit. 1,000 people have passed through this summit between yesterday and today, and so many more online, so we're really, really thrilled. This morning, we begin our 3rd block of What We Want in the City We Want theme, which is the responsive city. This is our focus on resilience and sustainability. To kick off this extremely important series of talks, we have none other than MAS's own Mary Rowe, our Executive Vice President and super resident resilient expert. Thank you.
Good morning. And good morning to everybody online. So it was a marathon day. I promised you that it would be a marathon, and now we're in day 2 of the marathon. How many people stayed through the thick and thin and were here for the Jane Jacobs Forum last night? Oh, you guys are fantastic. Wasn't it great? I thought it was great. I was so pleased with the young voices and the different ways that that people were experiencing the city, and that whole notion that the urbanists came up with to talk about Jane as and her perspective of a city in all the senses. It was wonderful. So as Vin suggested, this is the 3rd block of 4, and this one is about how we're responsive. And what does that look like? What are all the various ingredients to that? And who better to start off with that, or what better topic to start that off, to have a really serious conversation about climate change. And we all wondered how climate change would play on a Friday morning. And we have one of the best people to talk about this in terms of how the cities, what role we as civic leaders and civic organizations have in coming to terms with climate change. But before I introduce her, a couple of quick plugs. Do you remember we gave you this comment card? I need you to fill these out. If you don't have one, go to the membership table and get one. This is not obligating you to do anything other than to tell us what you think you're concerned about, because we use them through the afternoon and then the wrap-up session this afternoon, which is always really fun. How many of you remember from last year? It's actually a really lively session, and this year we have Gail Brewer and Dan Gorodnik, and Tish James has just confirmed she's coming. So I need to feed them something, so write down on this card what you think is important and that you want them to deal with, and we will. The other thing is City Builder Bingo. Now, there are going to be a lot of words played out this morning and this afternoon that are going to allow you to fill your card. So I don't want you to miss the chance, because if you call bingo, there's a lovely prize waiting for you. You might even know what that prize is. It's a hat, an MAS hat. So please play City Builder Bingo with us. Another plug for all our sponsors. It's been tremendous that we've had so much support this year. As you heard yesterday, I had trouble reading them all. Just wonderful. We want that to continue to be more and more of a burden. Let's have so many sponsors and supporters of this civic discourse that we can't read them all. It's tremendous to have them, and many of them are in the House today or online watching from their desks, and we really, really appreciate their support to make the summit possible. So as Vin suggested, I came to work in New York City. I was recruited by Vin, actually, out of New Orleans. I had spent 5 years working on the recovery there and learned that the challenges are not just about a recovering city, but how do you actually build into the city resilience into every moment of every piece of planning you do and every piece of design you consider. That it's really a process that has to be engendered and cultivated and nurtured. And I moved here to New York at Vin's request to come and work in MAS on the broader civic agenda and what MAS's role would be in looking at livability and resilience together. And sure enough, 2 years after I arrived, Sandy happened. It's interesting, I should just point out that prior to Sandy, the only full-on hurricane that New York City has ever received was in 1893, which happens to be the same year that MAS was founded. So there you go, 1893. Let's hope that we don't have to anticipate another one too soon, but Cynthia will tell us about that. Anyway, now we know that resilience is a household word. It certainly became that in New Orleans, and it now is here. And there's more and more discussion that New York is leading and that practitioners here in New York are leading, and we're going to hear about that this morning. We at MAS have been at the forefront of this. We've really felt it was important early to get everybody in the room, get all the conversations taking place, making sure that all the stakeholders were having a chance to come to terms with what the real implications of this were, and how important it is to have a strengthened urban fabric, which you heard all about yesterday, how we're planning and designing and managing civic spaces. Well, how important are they to the resilience of the system? You'll hear about that this morning. Where the new Penn Station fits in, how much economic diversity encourages our resilience because it allows us to be insulated from cyclical economic downturns, very important for a city like this. The role of parks and cultural institutions, how all of this can actually result in innovative solutions. How can the resilience challenge be generative for our economy and for the innovation that we already know is here in New York? We just have to find ways to stitch it together. There's hardly an aspect of MAS work that isn't about resiliency at some level. So if you want a crash course in the MAS approach to holistic city building, and I loved some of the quotes there about we're not taking a holistic approach, that's certainly what MAS is advocating for. Just look at the sessions this morning and the sort of tour de force that you had yesterday. That is what holistic city building has to include. And so we're really fortunate today in particular to have people coming from many, many other cities as well to inform our discussions and to help us learn from them and for us to share with them the things that we're learning here. So we have folks today on the program from Paris, San Francisco, Boston, Miami, Rio, Cape Town, wonderful to have them here, and Detroit, and they're all coming to contribute to our understanding of why cities matter to the global climate change challenge. And what's the role of artists and designers and entrepreneurs and planners and all of us as we come to terms with how a city can become more responsive. So, yesterday you saw we experimented with the poll technology and put up a question when Alicia and the Deputy Mayor and Carol Coletta were on stage. We put the question up, and one of you had been so quick that you'd responded. It looked as if 100% of you were were in favor of commercial rent control. In fact, what had happened is only one of you had responded at that point. So we've learned that, and I don't know if many of you saw the media picked that up and ran with that, but we've got it down now. So there is a poll question, and I'm going to show it, and then you have time to respond to it in a considered way, and then I will reveal it later this morning. So let's put that next poll question up. And have you got your bingo cards ready? Because does New York need to plan for managed retreat or strategic unbuilding? Those words are on your bingo cards. And if you don't know what they are, you're going to hear this morning what they are. So think about that as we roll that out over the next couple of hours for us to really think boldly about what the future is and what a resilient New York will look like.